Hello and welcome back to the channel, folks. I am your host Vortex from mobilemusicpro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you're new to the channel, what we do here is we try to help and create more mobile music producers. We're now training over 1,000 producers and we're just getting started. And we quickly just wanted to apologize and say sorry, it's been a few weeks since our last video, folks. First, I got sick, then the wife got sick, then so many crazy things started happening in the world, so I just thought it might be a pretty good time to take a break. But here we are, back at it again, so let's get to it. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to process loops in Cubasis 3 to make them sound unique. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Now, there certainly has been a bit of controversy out there around using loops and pre-made samples, but we believe loops and samples have an important role to play in music production and should be thoughtfully taken advantage of. Now remember, people have been sampling old records for hip-hop music for decades now, which is pretty much the same as loading up a pre-made loop. And of course today, everybody pretty much has ubiquitous access to these loops and samples thanks to the internet and services like Splice. And of course, most strongly, there's always the studio argument, which pretty much states that if you're in a studio with an artist and they're paying hundreds of dollars per hour to be there, you really need to make efficient use of their time. So, dragging in a couple of loops or samples to get a general vibe going that's going to make your artist happy can really be a lifesaver on most occasions. So in today's video, we're going to be showing you how to process both melody and drum loops to make them sound unique and make them harder, if not impossible, to identify by other producers. And remember, you don't always have to heavily process these drum loops and melody loops either. Sometimes just dropping in a simple percussive loop over your drum loop, or even a pad loop in the background that's sitting just right in the mix, really can do wonders for your production and still make it difficult for other artists or producers to identify. So, without further ado, let's get into how to process these melody and drum loops in Cubasis 3. Okay, here we have our Cubasis 3 project pulled up. And within this project, we have two main loops that we're going to be taking a look at. One of those is a melody loop, and one of those is a drum loop. So you can see there is a bunch of different tracks here, but this is just because it's the same loop, but is modified in different ways for each track. And we'll show you what we mean by that in a second. So we'll just quickly go through these tracks here. At the very bottom, we have our loop that has been time stretched to fit this project, which is 140 BPM. Both these loops that we'll be dealing with today is from Cymatics. You can of course find their stuff at cymatics.fm. And this next track here is that same melody, but it has been transposed down by a couple semitones. The next track we have after that is track 10, and this is where we applied some EQ. And the track after that, we applied a bunch of different effects that we'll be going through as well. And then here we have track 6, which is a complementary melody that will be playing alongside with the original melody once we've showed you all the different modifications that we've done to it. And the track after that, we have the same melody, but we have it chopped up in different ways. And we've done that through the sampler called Segments by Elliott Garage. So shout out to Elliott Garage, they make amazing apps. And the track after that is called Pad because we've actually applied a bunch of different effects, mostly reverb, to show you that you can turn even a regular melody into a background pad as well. And finally above that we have our three drum tracks here. We have the original drum track, again by Cymatics, and then we have an extra percussion track that we'll talk about, again by Cymatics, and then we have this track here which is the original drum loop but chopped up differently, again using segments from Elliott Garage. Okay, so let's get into all these tracks. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to play the original melody in its original BPM and form. So we'll go to our media bay and let's play this now. Alright, sounds pretty cool. Now, the first thing that we want to do for our project is we're going to want to bring this into our project and adjust it to the BPM that your project is set to. So currently you can see at the top right hand corner here that our project is currently set to 140 BPM. So let's quickly show you guys how to drag that into the project and set the BPM. So first we'll erase the original file here. And we'll go to our media bay. And let's drag that file in. Close the media bay, drag this all the way to the beginning of the project, or the beginning of the song, and then as you can see here, it is definitely longer than what it should be, right? If this is an 8-bar loop, it's actually going too far. So what we're going to do is going to adjust this to be 8 bars at 140 BPM. So we'll select the track, and then we'll go up to Stretch, and we're going to set this to Pro, which is the best version to use because it's going to sound the best. It just uses the most CPU power. And then we'll go down to our track here, and we will drag that over. And we'll close the stretch, and as we can see now, that is now set to 8 bars. So let's go ahead and again hear what that sounds like. So as you can hear, it's definitely sped up a bunch because the original wave file is 105 BPM. And the next track we're going to be looking at is that same melody once again, but this time we're going to transpose this down a couple of semitones. Now you can change the key or the pitch, you can change it up or you can change it down. I tend to usually bring it down a little bit as I think that for my preference it sounds a little bit better most of the time. So for this track what we did is we in fact brought this down by 2 semitones. So let's hear what that sounds like now. So far we have time stretched the track to make sure that it sits at 140 BPM, and then we've transposed the track down just a couple of semitones. So let's show you how we transpose that real quick. We'll remove the audio file that we already have, and we'll just copy the original from down at the bottom and paste that at the beginning of the track. And we're going to select it and click on Transpose at the top. From here we will adjust it to be down about 2 semitones here, and then we'll click Apply. So let's take a look at what we've done here. Under the EQ, you can see right now that we are mostly taking out all of the highs and boosting the lows. So let's quickly hear what that sounds like. So as you can hear, it definitely sounds a little bit darker and a little bit more filtered out. So far we've set the loop to 140 BPM, we've transposed it down 2 semitones, and we've adjusted the EQ to take out all of the highs. So let's just hear what this loop sounds like currently with some drums. Alright, starting to sound pretty cool. I think we can add a few more adjustments here to make this even more unique. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some effects. Now currently we have this track frozen, so we can just have the audio to save on CPU power. So we're going to just see what that sounds like real quick right now before we go through the effects. So as you can hear, this sounds drastically different than our original melody. Let's go ahead and play our original melody in our media bay. So we'll bring up the media bay and play this now. You can hear that definitely sounds quite drastically different than what we have now. So let's quickly just go through some of the effects that we applied to this melody now. So first we have our channel strip, which is basically just giving it some gain, going through the tape saturator here, as you can see. Just giving it a little bit of volume, just turning it up a little bit. After that, we have our studio EQ, that again is taking out most of those highs and boosting the lows. And after that, we have our IFX Rack Multi-FX plugin from Gospel Musicians, and that is using the Seasick Alien preset inside of the Special Effects Bank. And finally, we have the Dubstation 2 plugin from Audio Damage. And as you can see, this is using the 2/8 preset, which is essentially giving it a little bit of delay, as that is what this plugin is for. It is a delay plugin. And the next way I want to show you how to modify a melody is basically turning it into a pad. So you can turn it into a pad in a number of different ways. One of the most common ways to do this is reverb. So let's hear what this sounds like once we have a little bit of studio EQ applied and a lot of reverb. And we'll quickly play the melody before the reverb one more time for you. And now we'll quickly play the original melody before we've done any modifications to it. So quite a drastic difference once we've turned it into a pad. And another great trick that you can use to be able to make your samples and loops sound unique is to be able to layer them. So once we layer this pad with our modified melody and add an additional melody and some drums, it really starts to sound very, very unique. So let's hear what this sounds like together with our pad, our drums, an additional melody, and then the melody that we modified. So again, a pretty far cry from the original melody, which we'll quickly play one more time. So I think it's pretty hard to be able to find that out of this project that we've created now. So the effects that we applied to that pad was a studio EQ, where we basically just kind of cut all the highs out of there for the most part and upped the lows. And then we applied our reverb, which is the built-in stock reverb from Cubasis 3, with a pretty long tail reverb at 6.5 seconds. Now, another creative trick that you can use to be able to make your loops sound unique to you is by chopping them up and rearranging them. So we did that here with Elliott Garage's segments. Now, as you can see here, it does look like a pretty standard sampler. We have our big audio file there in the center that has been chopped up into 10 different pieces. And also, on a very important side note, we will be doing a video in the near future called the Top 5 Samplers. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for that video. So let's hear what the loop sounds like first without too many effects. It's just going to be set to our 140 BPM and transpose down a couple semitones. Let's just hear what that sounds like real quick. And now let's hear our chopped up version of that. So as you can hear, that definitely has a different groove to it. And with it already being transposed down a couple semitones, when you combine this chopping up of the sample, it really is very, very unique already. And then on top of that, you can add additional effects like we did for the other track. And now we want to talk about how to modify and customize our drum loops, very similar to how we did our melody loops. So here we have our drum loops again from Cymatics, from their Uzi Hip Hop sample pack. Let's just hear what that sounds like real quick. What you can do next is begin to chop it up and customize it to your own. So to do that, what we used is again segments from Elliott Garage. And again, we have our main loop spread out here and chopped up into 14 different slices. And you can play any one of these slices individually. So let's take a look at the pattern that we've come up with and hear what that sounds like. So as you can hear, it's a little bit more slowed down and maybe more sounding like classic hip-hop than trap. But I think it still sounds pretty cool. Let's just hear what that sounds like with a melody. Okay, not bad. So we'll just play the original one more time for you. And here's the chopped up. Alright, very cool. Another creative trick we wanted to mention to make your drum loops sound unique to you was just basically adding an additional percussion track. By layering another percussion loop underneath your drum loop, you've essentially already customized the loop. So we've dragged another percussion track in here from Cymatics, which is a top drum loop, and we'll layer this with our chopped up drum loop and hear what that sounds like. So as you can hear, it does further customize it and change it up just a little bit, giving it a little bit more flavor. Now let's hear what this extra percussion loop sounds like with the original loop. So you can see that just by adding an additional percussion loop, you can change the groove and the rhythm to make it sound unique to your track. So now we're going to play the whole thing together, which is our modified and chopped up drum track with our extra percussion track, and our pad, and our customized melody with all the effects, and our secondary melody. Let's hear what this sounds like together. Alright, not too bad. We'll just play the original melody just for you one last time so you can hear it and what a difference it is from our project. From this single loop, we built this whole project. So let's just quickly recap the 3 major tips that we have for you. So the first tip was that we changed the key, changed the tempo, the timing, and then we chopped up the sample. That's the first tip. And the second tip was adding additional effects and plugins to process the sample and make it sound very different. And finally, the third tip was to combine or layer your loops with other loops or other sounds. Alright, hello and welcome back everybody. We hope that some of these tips help or inspire you to try new things and experiment more with your productions. And we hope that we've shed some light on some of the controversy around using loops and samples, and why we think it's not a bad thing at all to use them in your productions. As you've hopefully seen in this video, there really is almost an infinite amount of ways to process these different loops and samples to make them sound unique. There's just so many tools and plugins now at your disposal to modify and process these different loops. There's really just no reason to not take advantage of the near ubiquitous sample packs available to producers today. So remember to like, subscribe, and comment if you are enjoying today's content. It really does help our channel grow and be seen by more and more producers. And if you want to further support our efforts of trying to create more and more mobile music producers and go above and beyond the call of duty and join our mobile music army, make sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/mobilemusicpro, where you can join for as little as $1 a month. So until next time everybody, keep talking music and we'll see you later.